Okay, we're doing this book, Holy Grail, the Wisdom Quotes by me, Pete Rogers. And by the way, in real life, people always want my quote books, my art books, and my Best of the West book. Most of my friends and most of the people I know, they don't really care about nutrition and health. But on the internet, almost everybody's interested in my health stuff, but they don't care about this other stuff. That's how life is. All right, so we're going through the letter O's, finishing up the letter O. First one is Alex Fakney Osborn. He lived 1888 to 1966. He was an advertising executive, and he wrote about creativity. He said, creativity is so delicate a flower that praise tends to make it bloom, while discouragement often nips it in the bud. Any of us will put out more and better ideas if our efforts are appreciated. Yeah, I think you got to nurture that in kids. Let them be creative. School will teach them how to be conformists. At home, they should learn how to be creative. Okay, reading supplies bread for the imagination. Yeah, you have to read. Otherwise, you don't go anywhere. Because, like, I'll tell you something. I know tons of doctors, and a lot of them got real high IQs. I actually think there's a lot of doctors who've got IQs in my ballpark, okay? But why is it that none of them ever write anything? None of them ever do anything creative in medicine? The vast majority of them, okay? I'd say for every 1,000 doctors, maybe one of them writes part of a book, co-edits a couple chapters. Most of them don't write anything, okay? I've written 30 books. Why is that? And I'll tell you what I think the answer is. It's because I read in all the different fields. And I mean, not just internal medicine subspecialties, surgery, surgical subspecialties, radiology subspecialties, okay, pathology subspecialties, and then nutrition, toxicology, epidemiology, all this stuff. So what I'm trying to say is, when you're reading a whole bunch of different fields, is you keep on seeing new connections and you go, gosh, I should put this into a book. Gosh, I should put this in a book. What most of the smart doctors I know is they study their own field, they know it well, they're competent, they make their money, they enjoy their life, spend time with their family. And if all you do is study the books in your own field, you're never going to see anything new. There's never anything new in a given field. A new piece of technology comes along once every 15 years. All right. So what I'm saying is that's why they never write anything, because they just know their own field. And they know their own books. And it's like, the books are already written. Why would I write anything else? But when you start reading a whole bunch of the fields, you realize internal medicine and all the internal medicines, especially, their textbooks are a joke. They're totally stupid. Okay? You see what a farce it is. It's insane how stupid it is. No one knows the cause of hypertension. Bullshit. We all know it's high fat and high sodium diets that are low in potassium, low in magnesium. It's freaking obvious once you do a little reading. Okay, so that's why reading supplies bread for the imagination. Readers are leaders. If you want to be a writer, you have to be a reader, because you have to be constantly soaking up all this information. All right, Sir Wm Osler, he lived 1849 to 1990, considered one of the greatest doctors of his time, certainly. He said, it is more important to know what kind of a patient has the disease and what kind of disease the patient has. There's actually truth in that today. I mean, most patients are kind of stupid and pathetic, and you feel sorry for them. Now, you talk to a regular person, and they think of themselves as a patient. If you watch my YouTube channel, you are not a regular patient, okay? What people don't understand is, why do most doctors talk kind of dopey and stupid? Hello, Mrs. Jones, how are you today? The reason they talk like that is because most of the patients they talk to are kind of stupid, okay? Healthy people and people who are smart, they don't get sick that often, okay? The people who are sick all the time are stupid people. Alcoholics, cigarette smokers, drug addicts, heroin addicts, okay? People that are really dumb and just doing really stupid stuff. People that are like weigh 300, 400 pounds. These types of people are sick all the time. So doctors are very used to talking to people like that all the time. Smart walker talkers, they're unusual. They're kind of a fun part of a doctor's day to have somebody they can have a real conversation with. Most of the time, you're trying to help these poor, pathetic people. You do the best you can to help them. They don't really understand anything. They end up getting drugs and surgery, okay? That's what happens like 95% of the time. In a perfect world, I would love a patient to come up to me and say, do you really think I should be 100% vegan? Is 95% good enough? That never happens in the real world. On the internet, I have people who sought me out. In the real world, patients are sick. And very often their situations are very sad, okay? So you be nice to them, you do the best you can for them, but, that's what that kind of means. If I have a person that really wants to learn nutrition, I'll talk to the cows come home about nutrition. I love talking about nutrition. But most of the time, it's pretty obvious that you're not going to get anywhere with that. Doc, you're telling me to give up my ice cream. I love ice cream. Doc, you're telling me to give up fishing. I love going fishing with my friends. Okay, so anyways, there's truth in that. Anyways, if a doctor talks to you like in a social friendly way, as far as the doctor's concerned, they're doing you a favor. That means they like you. That means they want to spend a little bit of time with you because they got tons of work to do. Believe me, there's always some bean counter, cracking the whip, making doctors go faster and faster. They're all monitored for their productivity and the speed of their throughput and stuff, the number of billing codes they're generating per hour. So if they're chatting with you, that means they like you and they're giving you some extra time. They're not, so take advantage of that. You should walk into the doctor's office with a list of questions and have them ready to go if you want to get the most out of your time. All right, anyways, let us continue here. The greater the ignorance, the greater the dogmatism. Yeah, usually that people come down hard on something when it's bullshit because they can't back it up. If you can back it up, I can say, look, if you want to cure coronary artery disease, eat low-fat vegan diet with no oil. If you want to argue with me, go ahead, read about it. I don't care if you die because you eat high-fat food. That's your life, But I'm just letting you know, there it is. It's easy to read about it. There's tons of information. A good physician treats the disease. A great physician treats the patient. All along the history of medicine, the really great physicians were peculiarly free from the bondage of drugs. Yeah, back in his day, there was like next to zero coronary artery disease. It only happened after you started having all these high-fat meals and all this processed food and refined flour and refined bread. Patient doing well, do not interfere. In science, the credit goes to the man who convinces the world, not the man to whom the idea first occurs. A man must have faith in himself to be of any use in this world. I think there's truth in that. People sometimes say to me, why are you so arrogant and stuck up and conceited and brag and talk about yourself? My attitude is like, F you, okay? I rewrote the medical textbooks, and if I wasn't confident, I wouldn't do that. Conventional medicine hates my guts, hassles me, doesn't like me, won't interview me. I'm ostracized from everything. I'm kicked out of the local medical school. If I wasn't confident and assertive, I couldn't do anything, okay? Like I just said, 99.9% of doctors never write a book chapter, yet alone write a book, okay? I've written like 30 books. How could I do it? Because I know I'm right and I'm confident and I'm energetic and I'm doing it and I'm going to do it. And that's the way it has to be. You have to be resilient because you're going to catch tons of insults and hassle and all kinds of bad things. And unless you're strong and convinced you know you're right, confident and have faith in yourself, you can't do it. Wimps don't do anything, okay? Like, it's been said by many smart philosophers and scholars, courage is the first virtue because without courage, you can't achieve anything, okay? I'm trying to save the proles. I'm trying to save Western civilization. That takes a lot of energy, okay? And things aren't going so well, so it takes a lot of perseverance. The patients are sick as hell because they're all eating processed food, drinking tap water. Western civilization is dying because everybody's been brainwashed in public schools, about all cultures are equal. All bullshit, the Mayans stacking up 1,000 skulls, the cannibalism, all the other bullshit in these third world countries. That's not the same as Christianity and Western civilization, okay? It isn't. All right. One of the first duties of the physician is to educate the masses not to take medicine. The desire of a man to take medicines is perhaps the greatest feature that distinguishes man from animals. Sir Wm Osler. Yeah, your freaking dog is smart enough it doesn't want to take a medicine. All right, let's continue with Wm Osler here. We got a little bit more left from him. He says, the study of diseases is a sort of Arabian Nights of entertainment. Yeah, a lot of docs like talking about diseases. To study disease without books is to sail an uncharted sea, but to study books without patience is not to go to sea at all. Okay, very nice. Now we're going to talk about Ovid. Ovid was a Roman poet, and he pissed off Augustus a little bit, and he got banished for a while. His books blacklisted. He sort of absorbed a lot of the Greek mythology and converted it into Roman theology, wrote a lot of poems about it, very popular. Be patient, and this is Ovid quotes, be patient and be tough. Someday this pain will be useful to you. Yeah, I think you got to be stoic sometimes. Sometimes you catch shit, and it's not fair. You didn't deserve it. Sometimes you can say something and try to talk your way out of it, but sometimes you're just screwed, and you just have to eat shit a little. I hate to say it, but sometimes you do. Like for divorce, when I got divorced, I had the best law advice you could get. I got a bunch of lawyers that give me advice for free, and they all told me, you're fucked. They said, basically, the legal system in divorce court is 100% against the man. There's nothing you can do about it. Don't waste your time fighting that aspect of it. You won't win. And these are your options. You can go down this path or this path. We recommend this path. So that's the path I took, even though, man, I didn't like it. It was a totally unfair screw job. My wife just took oodles of money and threw it into a garbage can. And that's like about as accurate a statement as one can make. But there's nothing I can do about it. Okay, Ovid, you can learn from anyone, even from an enemy. That's true. Okay. You got to read sometimes, though, too. If you don't read, you can't put stuff into a context. You need a theoretical framework to understand things because all kinds of weird little events happen. And if you don't have a theoretical framework of understanding for the given context, you'll have a hard time putting it into perspective. Like if you're in the middle of a negotiation, read about negotiation. If you're in the middle of something legal, read about legal stuff. If you're in the middle of something romantic and social, watch those dating coaches on YouTube. They're amazingly good. I wish I knew about them before. That's another thing too. We talked about this before, but almost all of the official institutions have been destroyed by this hand, LEFT. And so about the only place you can find real information is on the internet. College professors most of them in most fields are close to worthless. A college psychology professor is worthless, okay? They don't know the difference between a man and a woman. They're not allowed to say anything bad about a woman. Whereas in real life, a guy dealing with a woman in a relationship, she's going to do all kinds of nasty, dishonest games, and he's got to be able to play those games and recognize them if he wants to not get turned into a chump. Anyways, thank God for dating coaches. Thank God for internet experts. At least somewhere one can get the truth. Of course, most of the stuff on the internet is BS too, but at least there's a chance to get the truth. You'll never get the truth about women from a psychologist or from a college professor. John Owens. He was the author of an entertaining book about teaching junior high students. The book's called Confessions of a Bad Teacher. He worked for over 20 years in publishing business, and he wanted to become a teacher. So at the public schools in New York, 8th and 9th grade. And he was frustrated because he was trapped in catch-22s. The students were bored, and whenever he would do something to liven it up and make it better for the students, it often backfired. He'd get in trouble. He said, when there was a good engaging discussion in the class, the conversation would sometimes get loud. Then the teacher would get scolded for having a loud classroom. One of his schools had a librarian, but no library. Because he was a new teacher, low on the totem pole, he had no homeroom, and he had to transport his teaching props on a push cart in the hallway between classes, and he was taunted by the students. Yeah, the public schools, they don't manage the hallways. In a Catholic school, they don't put up with that crap. His book showed the daily challenges of being a teacher in a fun way. I read tons and tons of stuff about education. I was very interested in the subject, so I read all this stuff. 8th grade students love to write about themselves. Good, then let them write about themselves. At least they'll have something they want. They know, and that's how you learn to write, is by wanting to write and then starting to do it and making mistakes and learning how to fix them. It is unfair that every teacher is considered bad until proven otherwise. Well, the teachers tend to stink because anybody that believes the public school mantra, the public schools by definition are run by people who hate the students, so they design them to be bad. So it's not so much because the teachers are bad, it's just the teachers are stupid and they tend to follow things. To be a good teacher, you have to go against the program, like John Taylor Gatto. But when you do what John Taylor Gatto does, you get fired, you get in trouble. So even though he's named the best teacher of the year and he has the best students, he's always in trouble. And the best teacher in 6th grade, I told you guys about the book whisperer lady. Donalyn Miller was her name. Yeah, she just put a bunch of books on the table and told the kids to read on their own. That's a better education than anything the public schools will have for the National Education Union. It's like LEFT, it's worthless. Okay. Anyways, do I have maybe one more guy? I think that's probably it for this. Yeah, that's it for the letter O. We'll stop there. Hope you found that helpful.